you want to be seen as a confident expert and leader, then your words have to carry weight. As someone who was woefully shy and introverted, who mastered the art of confidence and communication and went on to build a multi-million-dollar business, I've experienced all of the mistakes firsthand that keep people from becoming great speakers. And these are the 5 skills I guarantee, if you implement, will allow you to communicate better than 99% of people. Skill number 1. Most people speak for approval. The top 1% speak to serve. Author and coach Myles Munroe once said, the greatest act of leadership is service to others. When your goal is to serve, you stop chasing approval and you start delivering value. You stop performing for applause and you start speaking with a purpose. In my company, I work with a lot of coaches and experts, and I've seen both mindsets every day. It is really easy to spot the difference between someone who speaks as a leader, coming from service, and someone who accidentally talks themselves out of credibility because they're trying to get people to like them. And see, I was working with a coach recently who had a client whose numbers were just not adding up. The revenue targets weren't being met, the activity level was way below what it needed to be, and it was clear as day, like from a math perspective. But instead of addressing the activity gap directly, this coach kept circling around it, and she'd ask the client how they were feeling, talk about their motivation to take action, and talk about mindset and everything except the obvious fact that their actions weren't matching their goals. And so I finally asked her, why haven't you pointed this out to her? And she hesitated for a second and then said, honestly, I'm worried about her reaction. I don't want her to be upset with me. What if she thinks I'm not a good coach? What if she leaves the conversation feeling bad? And right there was the problem, because you cannot serve someone if you're more invested in protecting their comfort or your image in their eyes than telling them the truth they need to hear. It doesn't mean you need to be abrasive. It's not about swinging a hammer. It's about holding up a mirror. You can speak the truth in love, but you have to speak it, because a huge part of being a strong communicator, whether you're a coach, a leader, a manager, or a friend, is being willing to share the truth independent of how the other person might feel in that moment. So in the end, short-term discomfort can be the seed of long-term transformation for you. But that seed never gets planted if you're too afraid to open your mouth and say the truth. And so practice speaking the truth to people. Here's some really great approaches to what that would look like. Get permission. Hey, is it okay if I coach you for a second? If you're not in a coach relationship, maybe you would say, hey, are you open to hearing something I see from my perspective? And then strip out all of the softeners with your language. These are qualifiers like I think, I feel, because it weakens the authority behind your words. And then swap them for confident, service-focused language. Instead of, I think we should try, say, here's the best path forward. Instead of, I feel like this might work, say, here's a strategy that's going to get us a better result. And then anchor the truth in shared goals. Connect the hard truth with the outcome that they actually want. So for example, hey, I'm sharing this with you because I know your goal is to hit 20K months. And what I'm seeing right now is making that goal harder to reach. So this keeps the focus of the communication on service, not judgment. The people that you admire the most, the CEOs, those leaders, the top performers, they have a point of view that they stand on and then they speak from it. If you want to increase your credibility, mean what you say what you mean, and remember, the goal isn't to be liked, the goal is to serve. Skill number 2, don't speak to them, speak as them. This is one of the fastest ways to lose connection with an audience or a client or even a single person that you're talking to, is to position yourself as the expert over here and them as the learner over there. The most influential communicators don't convince people to see their side, and they don't share their perspective. The best communicators speak to people as if they were the other person. There's a saying, people don't see you as you are, they see you as they are. That means when people listen to you communicate, they automatically filter your words through their own level of experience. It's through the lens of their own fears, their frustrations, and their desires. And so if you're someone who's really wanting to share your story and tell the world about it, I got news for you. It's the fastest way to lose people. If you really want your message to connect with others, you have to step inside their world, speak to people at the level of their own experience, and share their story. Let me give you an example. I once watched a coach try to convince a business owner to change her pricing model. And the coach came in with all of the charts and all of the logic, and they said, from a business perspective, this makes a lot of sense. The market is telling you X, your profit margins will improve, and those points were all technically correct, but they were aimed at that person's priorities, not the person they were communicating to, the business owner. And so the business owner wasn't lying awake at night thinking about profit margins. What she was really worrying about in that moment was, will my clients still buy from me if I charge more? Will they still think I'm worth it? And so it was a different angle of priority. So when the coach was explaining this business model from a math perspective and a profit margin perspective, her eyes glazed over. She wasn't emotionally on board. Now contrast this with this communication. You know how your best clients always light up when you go that extra mile for them and when you give them more of your time and more of your personal attention and an overall better experience? Well, this new pricing model will give you the space and the resources to do that every single time. Not just like the top few clients, they'll feel it, they'll talk about it, and they'll value you even more. Do you see the difference in the way you are communicating with this coach? The first coach spoke about the money and the business owner and how much they were going to make. And the second coach spoke through the lens of the person they were speaking to, what they valued most about the business, which was how they were going to make their clients feel, which was how they were going to feel as a byproduct, which is also valid and also relevant. It's just a different lens or perspective to communicate the same message. And so when the conversation shifted from your revenue will improve to your clients will value you more, stay longer, and tell other people about you, the business owner is able to lean in. She started imagining the praise, the loyalty, the referrals, and only then was she really ready to hear about the numbers that back it up. If you want your words to land, borrow the eyes of the person you're speaking to and see the world as they see it. Here's how you can put this into practice. Start with their inner dialogue. Before you speak, ask, what are they already thinking about this? What are the sentences running through their head right now? Use their language. Stop using industry jargon and swap it with what they actually say. If they say clients instead of customers, talk to them about clients instead of customers. Describe their current reality before describing your solution. This proves to them, as they're listening to you, that you understand them. And people will follow someone who they really feel truly understands them. Skill number 3, clarity is currency. How many of you have ever heard the expression, a confused mind never buys? Well, there's a powerful principle behind this. If people don't understand you, they can't follow you. And there's a quote that's often attributed to Einstein: if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. If they can't grasp it, it's not proof they can't learn it, it's proof that you haven't taught it well enough. And I'm always trying to figure out ways that I can explain things to my clients in a new way to make it clearer, easier, simpler, easier to understand and implement. It's like when someone's trying to sell you a car and instead of telling you it's safe, it's reliable, it'll save you money on gas, they start rattling off all of these things you don't care about. The chemical composition of the brake pads, the exact airflow ratio of the engine, and the detailed history on the tire manufacturer. 10 minutes in, you're probably nodding politely, but your brain will be checked out 8 minutes ago. They might be sharing brilliant information and things they think are super interesting. They might even know more than average about that topic. They might think they've really impressed you with their expertise, but guess what? It's not the information you care about, and they wonder why you're not excited to buy. So clarity starts with doing the mental work before you open your mouth to communicate. Ask yourself, what is the single most important point that they need to walk away with having clarity around? How can I say this so it's simple, it's easy, and they can use it right away? Is it simple? Is it easy? Can they use it? And then build your words around that point. Not 10 other points that you also feel like making because you feel like it will add to your know-how, your credibility, your expertise. It's going to make you look so smart. So here's a simple exercise. Take a complex concept that you are trying to communicate, that you know really well, and explain it to a 10-year-old. Make it so clear that they can explain it back to you. If they can't, then go back and simplify the message further. Strip away anything that makes your point harder to see. So instead of, we could maybe consider the possibility of, say, here's the best option. Skill number 4, the 10-second rule. Have you ever said something in the heat of the moment and then thought about it later that day and thought, man, I could have said that better? One of the fastest ways to lose credibility is to let your emotions supersede your intention. I love what Thomas Jefferson said. When angry, count to 10 before you speak. If very angry, 100. Mark Twain said, the right word may be effective, but no word was ever as effective as a rightly timed pause. And there's so much truth to that. Being able to slow down and pause for a beat before you respond to something someone said gives you the opportunity to really think and form your words with intention, not reaction. That doesn't mean that when someone says something, you're not going to feel anything. You are a human being. It's impossible not to feel. But being a great communicator means that you are able to practice awareness of your feelings without the need to react to them. I like to think of it as being a thermostat instead of a thermometer. A thermometer just reflects the temperature in the room and it reacts. Thermostat sets the room's temperature and it leads. The 1% are thermostats. They walk into the room already calibrated, and then they don't let the loudest voice or the worst news throw them off. So when you get triggered, and you will, here's a simple way to reset before you respond. Pause for 2 seconds. Let the emotion pass through instead of jumping on it. Check your intention. Are you about to speak to a win or an argument? Or are you about to move the conversation forward at all? And then after you've taken a few breaths, you had your 10-second pause, respond with the goal in mind, not the feeling in the moment. Because here's the thing, most people remember how you handled yourself under pressure more than what you actually said. And if they trust your composure, they'll trust your leadership. Skill number 5, speak less, say more. One of the biggest credibility killers in communication is over-explaining and over-talking. You've probably seen it. Somebody makes a really great point, everyone nods, and then they keep going and going and going. And they restate it 3 different ways, and it adds unnecessary detail, and suddenly all of the impact is gone. I remember sitting in a meeting, and I was talking to a sales rep who had asked me to review one of their sales calls because it didn't enroll, and they were really frustrated. They felt like they should have enrolled. And what was so interesting about the conversation was that the client had already said yes. All they had to do was enroll them. But instead of stopping there, the sales rep just kept talking. And something really weird happened with the energy in the room. All of a sudden, as they started explaining all of these things that the client hadn't asked and hadn't brought up, they started getting into all of the weeds. You could hear on the other end of the conversation, the client's tone and energy completely changed. And the sales rep unknowingly brought up all of these potential worries and objections and concerns the client hadn't even mentioned or thought of before. But now the client's in their head overthinking all of it. And by the time they were done, the client had completely backed out. That's what happens when you don't stop talking after you've hit your target. It's like shooting an arrow. Once it's released and flying towards the target, your job is done. Adding more motion after the shot only throws it off course. So here's the point. Sometimes adding more words doesn't add power to your message. Learn how to say what you mean, say it well, and then stop talking. So here's how to put this into practice. Know your core message before you start. If you don't know where you're aiming, you're never going to know when you've actually hit it. Stop when you've made your point. Resist the urge to oversell the point with more words. And then let silence do the work. Give people space to absorb, respond, and really grasp what you've said without rushing to fill the gap. And remember this. Seeking validation after you've spoken can instantly erode your authority that you spent all this energy to build. High-level leaders don't need to say, does that make sense? You got that? Does that make sense? Is that clear? After every sentence. because they trust their delivery and they know what they said. And as a byproduct, so does everybody else listening. If you master these 5 skills of communicating, you will become a powerful leader and impact the lives of many. And if you want to master the habits that make millions, then check out my next video that will help you do exactly that. I'll see you over there. Bye-bye.